Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Football Chuggu podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Pierce McLaughlin.
How
Hello,
you
Pierce.
doing?
I'm okay. In today's podcast, we'll be discussing the weekend cup finals, which were Celtic versus Rangers and Man United versus Newcastle. At the end of the podcast, Pierce will be giving a rundown of all the Asian football news. Coming up next, we'll be discussing the Via Cup final between Celtic and Rangers. Celtic were crowned champions of the Viaplay Cup final after defeating Rangers 2-1. Pierce, what is your overall thoughts of the match?
Well, like we said, I thought it was very entertaining. Thought Celtic dominated for large majorities of the game, and then Rangers, I knew they'd be quite difficult and dangerous from set pieces. And as soon as they got the set piece goal to bring it back to 2-1, we got half an hour to go. They threw caution to the wind, had a few chances, and then Celtic could easily have wrapped it up, made it 4 or 5 at the end with a few missed chances. But overall, I thought Celtic were deserved winners. They controlled that midfield battle, which we thought were key before to the game. In terms of, we weren't sure if Moy or O'Reilly would start, but for me, Callum McGregor and Rio Hatate just absolutely bossed that midfield.
Yeah, I agree on all what you said. First of all, I've got to say the atmosphere was amazing.
Yeah.
I always like the type of games when the allocation's half and half. Uh, it makes the atmosphere much better. I actually thought the start of the game, first sort of 30 minutes of the match, I thought both teams were a bit sloppy. I thought both teams, were there was a lot of misplaced passes, a lot of fouls. The game was a bit stop start, and then yeah, as you said, Celtic after about half an hour they started to take a bit more control. I think Rangers were struggling to keep up with the intensity. They started losing the ball, and then I think the first goal, I think it was a deserved goal. I think
Mhm.
Kyogo. I think that goal was coming. I think he'd had already about three good chances before it, and then second half Rangers started well, um, and then Celtic got that goal in about the 56th minute, and then we all thought, game over. We thought Celtic will just ride this out, and then I think it was about 10 minutes later, Rangers pulled the goal back, and then it was sort of like last season in the semi final of the Scottish Cup. As soon as Rangers scored, Celtic kind of they stopped playing, and that's what happened. That's what happened on Sunday. They just stopped playing. Rangers looked like they were going to score, they were going to get the goal back, but it never happened. Um, and then I think after from the 80th minute onwards, I think Rangers lost a bit of belief. They couldn't create that chance, and then as you said, Celtic at the end they could have got a couple more goals. So no, I do think at the end of the day, I think Celtic were deserved winners.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be like you say, like the cut goals at the end. I thought off the bench last 10, 15 minutes, when you're bringing players of the quality of Sead Haksabanovic on, the man is just it just oozes class, like especially when you've got players like Jota and Maida coming off, and then you've got Haksabanovic and Abada, fresh legs running at the full backs and centre halves. Abada is
Yeah,
very direct, whereas Haksabanovic is strong. He's got that skills, a bit of flair, and he can beat a man either side. And he could have had a double right at the end, and like that's the difference for me. Like in terms of Rangers, like Rangers for me, I think they lost the game with their midfield. Like I don't know why they chose to start with Glenn Kamara, John Lundstrom, and Malik Tillman. For me, Lundstrom and Tillman haven't played for about 2, 3 weeks because of injury, and then they fling them into a cup final when you've got a boy Nicholas Raskin who's played the last couple of games who's been brought in to improve the midfield, and then he's on the bench. It just shows you like they're still using the same kind of trusted players, but they've let themselves down again. But no, for me, even if he started, I still think still would have edged it in terms of midfield battle because Cal McGregor and Hatate and Aaron Moyer stuck class above, to be honest.
yeah, I do agree with you about the selection that Michael Beale started with. Because I also think I think it was John Lundstrom came off in Glenn Kamara and Raskin came on in Cantwell. I actually thought Rangers looked better.
Hmm.
I thought they looked a bit more energetic in the middle of the park. You know, they were much more closer to Celtic's midfield. So I think, I mean, you can't predict these things, but it could have been a different game if Raskin and the likes of Cantwell started. Um, so maybe that's something that today Michael Beale might be sitting there regretting that he went with the wrong team. I want to talk about Kyogo. Um, you know, he seems to be a master at the cup final goals. You know, last season he scored two to win Celtic the League Cup, and this season in the League Cup final he scores two again for Celtic to be the winner.
Mm-hmm.
How highly do you rate Kyogo?
A class above it. See, for me, he's just a lovable character. Like you see his personality, his enthusiasm for the club. He just gets the club right away. Coming from the other side of the world in Japan, um, and the fact is, it's just his movement. Although he does miss some easy chances, but it's his movement. He gets the chances. You always have chances, and he has got amazing finishing in the locker. He's proven that this season, and again in a big game for Celtic, he's come up clutch. Like a lot of people were saying, oh, he might not score in these fixtures against Rangers because he hadn't scored until the one at Ibrox, and now he's followed up with a double, and that's now two doubles and two League Cup finals where he's virtually won Celtic two trophies. And it's very important winning the League Cup because it gives you that momentum towards the end of the season. Because although we have a 9 point lead in the league, winning that first trophy kind of lays down a marker for the rest of the season. Because obviously Rangers still will still believe they can catch us if we slip up, and if they had a trophy and they beat us in the final, then it would maybe kick them on. But the fact is, it's Ange has retained his first trophy at Celtic, but Kyogo for me is not want to say world class, but in terms of like Celtic, it would be like that sort of level. He's just a class above.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing about Kyogo is that I always think when I watch him is that he must be a nightmare for defenders because he's always on the shoulder. He always goes to where the space is. He always wants the ball. The one thing I like about strikers is when they're willing to run like off the ball. So what like putting the ball over the top for strikers to run onto, and Kyogo loves that style of play. He loves, you know, he thrives on that. That's what I love about him. I think that was the difference yesterday with, for example, Morelos. I always felt when Rangers had the ball, he always wanted to go deep to get the ball at his feet, and he
Mhm.
always had his back turned from the goal. Whereas Kyogo was, you know, he was always on the shoulder. He was always wanting the ball over the top, and I think a couple of chances yesterday um, came from that. You know, I think one of the midfielders or defenders put the ball over the top, and you know he didn't take his chance. But in my opinion, in terms of how highly I rate him, I think he's one of the top strikers Celtic have had in a long time. Um, you know, that's two League Cup finals he's played for Celtic, and he's got four goals, two
Hmm.
last season, two this season. You know, he's a big game player, and you know I rate him really highly. You know, at the end of his Celtic career, I don't know. I mean, he could be right up there in terms of what the legacy he leaves. So, not brilliant player. So we will now move on to the result of the Carabao Cup final match between Man United and Newcastle. So Man United were crowned champions of the Carabao Cup after defeating Newcastle 2-0. Pierce, what are your thoughts of the match?
It was kind of what I expected it to be. Although Newcastle had a phenomenal season, great defensive record, but that has also been set on having their first choice goalkeeper and losing Nick Pope to suspension for the cup final was a kick in the teeth for all Newcastle fans and the Newcastle squad because they having to chuck in Loris Karius, who hasn't really kicked a competitive ball in probably over a year. He's had loan stints away at Turkey and back in Germany, and he was basically like what third choice at Newcastle. And even Grant Gillespie, former Motherwell, was even on the bench as well. So it was basically Newcastle down to the bare bones because Nick Pope has had a phenomenal season. So many clean sheets, so many outstanding saves. One that comes to mind is the one he's tipped onto post Erling Haaland at St James's Park early in the season when he nicked a point. So he can come up clutch in big moments. And with the form of Marcus Rashford at the moment, there's no one better in the English Premier League than Marcus Rashford on current form. And he backed up again with scoring again. I don't know how many games it is in a row he scored in, but it just seems like every game he's scored now. And compared to last season, 5 goals in all competitions. And this season he's broken 20 odd.
I was actually going to ask you about Marcus Rashford. Obviously, he scored again yesterday. Do you
Yeah.
think you could make the case for him that he's the most informed player in Europe at the moment?
He's got to be up there with like, the likes of Vinicius Junior, Kylian Mbappe, that sort of level at the moment. Because last season, you've seen his confidence is shot after that Euros. The same happened to Jadon Sancho, but Bukayo Saka picked up his head from that penalty miss. But in terms of this season, had a good manager underneath him, guided him perfectly, had a good pre-season, and he just kicked on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's been brilliant. And just going back to the game, um, you know, Newcastle had a lot of the ball in the final, but I just felt Man United were just so clinical going forward. Um, I think Casemiro in the midfield he's been an absolutely brilliant signing for Man United. He's brought that steel to them. You know, he's all every time when I saw the game yesterday, every time Newcastle had the ball, whether it was on the right or the left, Casemiro was always looking about, trying to win the ball back. I also think the two centre backs, Martinez and Varane, I think they've been brilliant. You know, they've struck up a really good partnership. Um, so I just think at the moment with Man United that you know Ten Hag kind of style is that he wants to keep the ball, he wants to, but I feel like they just have winners in the team where don't really care about the ball. They just want to, they're just set up so well and they're so hard to break down. And that's what I felt one of the game yesterday. You know, the kind of defensive shape. So no, it was a brilliant performance. And I was just wanting to ask about Eric Ten Hag. How highly do you rate the job of Eric Ten Hag?
He's done a good job so far. He's managed a lot of egos. Obviously, the Ronaldo situation was a bit tarnished. For me, I thought he handled that poorly in terms of Ronaldo, but I thought Ronaldo probably should have left at the end of last season. But that's more down to the club and whatever else. I should have just let him go, and it wouldn't have tarnished his legacy, in my opinion. But as you can see, they're now starting to chant "Viva Ronaldo" again now that he's gone. So it kind of hurt them, and it kind of held them back a bit because regardless if they're playing good or not, it was like, why not bring Ronaldo? Why not start Ronaldo? Because Ronaldo's one of the greatest players of all time, and 37, 38, he's now 38, and the fact is he wants this high pressed intensity team, and it just wasn't going to work. You just knew from day one it wasn't going to work, and obviously he was saying one thing to the media and then a different thing to Ronaldo, and Ronaldo was at the interview and then forced his way out. But since then, I think Man United have kicked on something awful. They've been red hot form, and like you say, I back up the things you said. Casemiro's transformed the midfield. It makes them look a lot more solid. The fact is that Martinez has made their defence more solid in terms of striking up a partnership with Rafa Varane, who's now kind of injury free because last season he was very much in and out of the team. Because we had to play Lindelof, Maguire, and sometimes even and Eric Bailly, I think maybe last season. But no, in terms of Eric Ten Hag, I think he's done a terrific job. He's won a trophy in his first season, and now they've got a chance to even win the Europa League as well. So they put out Barcelona, one of the favourites for the competition. So I think he could even finish the season with 2 trophies. So I think it'd be a tremendous job considering Manchester United haven't won a trophy before today or yesterday. Until what was it? Mourinho won Europa League in 2017.
Yeah,
So
it was Mourinho.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
so they could even I think they could even go and win Europa League again this season. And Eric Ten Hag can get top 4 plus Europa League and 2 trophies. I think it'd be a very successful season for Manchester United.
yeah, no, I agree with majority of what you said. I know you said Ronaldo, he didn't deal with it well. I thought he did deal with it well. I just think with Eric Ten Hag, I just think now that Man United have like a proper manager.
Yeah.
I think when you look at him, he's the one in charge. I felt when Solskjaer was there, I felt that a lot of players kind of their attitudes were wrong. I felt Solskjaer struggled to deal with it, and it kind of caused a bit of chaos. But I think with Ten Hag, he didn't have a great start. I think one of the early games was the Brentford 4-0 defeat. And if you told me back then, a few months ago, that fast forward a few months, he would have won a cup, I thought you'd be having a laugh. I think the job he's done is brilliant. His first season to already win a cup. They've got a great chance of winning Europa League. I think good times with Man United under Eric Ten Hag. I do feel now they're going places, and obviously with Marcus Rashford, who's a totally different player, and he's still very young as well.
Yeah.
So I think Eric Ten Hag's, I think Eric Ten Hag and Man United. I think the future looks good.
So do you think
So
Manchester United, like, in terms of like going to that next level? Obviously, you seen yesterday, Weghorst is the striker on loan from Burnley. Do you think they still need another couple of additions to the team in terms of another midfielder and potentially another striker?
yeah, I do think that I don't think they're on the level of Arsenal and Man City. I don't think their squad's complete yet. I do think they do need. I definitely think in the forward positions, I think they need it. Like I think although Marcus Rashford does a top quality striker, I do think they need another one because I think if Marcus Rashford got injured, I think they'd struggle for goals. So I think they do need to get someone in that position. Um, uh, and probably in the midfield area, I think they've got Sabitzer on loan, who's done well. But if he doesn't stay, if he goes back to Bayern Munich, they'll need someone to replace, for example, Eriksen. So I do think that in the midfield area and in the striker position, I do think they need a couple of big additions in there. But I think the squad looks good. They've got some good uh, they've got some good players in there, and I think the more Eric Ten Hag works with them, you know, the more they'll grow, and in a couple of years' time, they could definitely be up there for winning the title. So for the final part of the show, Pierce will now give his Asian football news roundup.
Well, to kick things off with Asian football news, the news broke this morning that Korea national team have appointed Jurgen Klinsmann as new head coach following the resignation of Paulo Bento after the 2022 Qatar World Cup. And I will be putting a detailed article on that later on this evening or tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for that on the Football Chuggu website. In terms of the J League, Yokohama won 2-0 against Urawa Reds. Hokkaido Kunsale Sapporo lost 3-1 to Vissel Kobe. Gambo Osaka drew 1-1 with Sagan Tusu. Avispa Fukuoka won 2-1 against Cerezo Osaka. Kawashima Antlers lost 2-1 to Kawasaki Frontale. And Nagayo Grampus won 1-0 against Kyoto Sanga FC. And that was on the Saturday fixtures, so this now the Sunday fixtures to round off the J League 1 fixture cards. So it was Sanfrecce Hiroshima 1, Albirex Niigata 2, and Kawashiwa Reysol 1, FC Tokyo 1. In terms of the Korean League, so that kicked off this weekend, and so I've done a match report on one of the Japanese League games and one of the Korean League games. So on Saturday we had the record holders against the current champions, Ulsan Hyundai versus Jeonbuk, and Ulsan Hyundai won 2-1. FC Seoul beat Incheon United 2-1. Suwon Blue Wings lost 1-0 at home to newly promoted side Gwangju FC. And to round off the fixtures on the Sunday, Jeju United drew 0-0 with Suwon FC. Pohang Steelers beat Daegu 3-2, and Daejeon Citizen beat Gangwon 2-0. So that is your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pierce. And thank you for everyone for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also on the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye.